hopefully all of us in all that we do at Notre Dame, it's part of what makes the place so special, is that they care about the spiritual life of players and of all our students.
Here come the Irish. What a run! Touchdown! Play of the year for the Irish.
Welcome to the ND on NBC podcast. I'm your host, Corey Robinson. Notre Dame won 45-32 over North Carolina, meaning we're back to 500. This is great. Notre Dame is 2-2. Since this is a bye week, next week is a big matchup. BYU at Allegiant Stadium, Shamrock Series. But let's focus on the bye week, a week of rest for the players, for the team, for us as fans, emotionally. We are going to switch it up a little bit. We're going to get a game breakdown of that UNC win. The word is offense, and we'll talk to Doug Farmer about that. And we have, first and foremost, a really interesting interview with not a player, but with Father Nate Wills, the team chaplain. Father Nate has a really interesting job. I asked him, well, how do you become team chaplain? You don't apply, you're chosen. So think about that. What is the responsibility? What is the route to becoming the team chaplain for one of the most iconic football teams in the country? And how do you help the team win? Father Nate tells us. Take a listen. Is the team chaplain for Notre Dame football. And Father Nate, you've been so kind to me. Mark Thiesing, Father Mark, was my team chaplain when I played. And one of my favorite traditions at Notre Dame is handing out the medals. And every time I see you on the sideline, you always come over to me and give me the medal. And we're going to get into that, exactly what does that mean. But first and foremost, I just want to introduce you to everybody. They may see you on the sideline with the team. What is exactly your Notre Dame story? How did you arrive at being team chaplain? What made you fall in love with the campus in the first place?
Yeah, it's a great question. Boy, I've been here for a good part of my life. I came to Notre Dame as an undergrad, following the year after my older brother, came to Notre Dame as well. We're both first generation college kids, and Notre Dame was pretty much. I was told by my college counselor that Notre Dame was a stretch, and I was like, okay, but I want to go. And I really fell in love with the campus, the beauty, and from early on, I was thinking about a vocation to the priesthood and was wondering where God was calling me in my life. And I entered the college seminary as a freshman, and it was just wonderful. I had great people. I lived in the old college, one of the oldest buildings on campus, the old college building, and have great friends who are still good friends who were college seminarians at the time. Not all of them are Holy Cross priests, but really came here to Notre Dame to explore my vocation, and found a vocation within a vocation as a teacher and as a priest. So it's just been a wonderful experience. The whole football chaplain thing came as an utter surprise to me. I never in my life imagined that I would have this role. Though it was pretty great when I was in graduate school studying for my doctorate in education at Wisconsin. I lived in a parish with a pastor who became a great friend of mine, Father Mike Burke, who is the little 40-year chaplain to the Wisconsin Badgers. And so he kind of took me under his wing. And while I was there, we talked a lot about football. I met his buddies and his coaches and all those good folks. But I would have no idea that a couple years later, I'd get asked by my buddy, Father Pete McCormick, to help out Father Mark Thiesing as he took on more responsibilities in our province. So he just called me up and asked if I wanted to help out. And I was kind of shocked and flabbergasted and excited and honored.
So there's no application process, just you're chosen?
Yep.
Wow. So if help me understand that ride along apprenticeship, with Father Mark Thiesing. What did that apprenticeship actually look like on the ground?
Yeah, I mean, he was great. He had all these documents and stuff of, here's what to do before the game. Here's what we do, kind of. And it's really cool to see how both he and I stand on the shoulders of giants on this stuff. I mean, Jim Reilly, who is, the long time chaplain to the football team, who is in Rudy. He's the one that everybody thinks about, as the chaplain to Notre Dame football. He was on the sideline smoking a cigar all during the game. Can you imagine? I mean, it's just great. And then Father Paul Doyle was chaplain as well for a long time. A lot of folks remember him. And Father Mark really helped me to say, um, our key role really is just to support people in whatever way possible. Father Mark, as you probably remember, Corey, is a pretty talented close-up magician, and has like card tricks and stuff like that. And he would entertain the student managers, the flight attendants on our charter, and all this stuff. And right away, when I came on board, they were like, "So what do you do?" I'm like, "I don't do any of that." Like, I told the flight attendants, I'm like, "Well, if you bring me food, I'll make it disappear, but that's about it." So
No magic for you?
he's been trying to teach me magic tricks, and I'm like, I can't do it. I'm just not adept enough. But
Do you have a hidden talent?
me, no, no, I don't think.
See, I find that hard to believe.
Um, no, I don't think I have any really hidden talents. I don't know. I can't really sing. I don't know. I've done a couple of voiceovers for different things. There was a couple commercials that Notre Dame did, and I got I have kind of a lower voice, and so I'd be like, "Welcome to Notre Dame," and like all of that stuff. But and actually, here's a hidden thing. I've been working for years and trying to build out of an audio tour of Notre Dame. And if you go deep into the Notre Dame app, there is an audio tour of campus that is my voice. So every once in a while, I'll walk by groups of people, walking around campus, and they have their phone out and they're listening to this, and I'm like, that's me, that's me.
You're like, hey guys, that's me, St. John Chrysostom, right? The golden mouth. That's a really nice gift, Father Nate. I want to ask about football, the relation, because you think, okay, if you're chosen to be the football chaplain, do you need to know about football, or do you need to love football? Like I know your brother Nick walked on. You mentioned but you didn't mention that he walked onto the basketball team. How important was football to you growing up in Minnesota?
Yeah, football was always a part of life, but it really, for me, it wasn't a huge part of my life. My mom is a pediatric nurse and really worried about us all the time. It was like, I don't want you to get hurt and whatever. And my brother was a great basketball player, as you mentioned, and he was forbidden for playing football, like he couldn't do it. And so I was like, well, I guess we can't play football in my family. And then my senior year, my buddy Bob Lair, we were working out together all that summer, and he's like, "Why don't you play football with us?" And I'm like, "Oh, my parents won't let me." And so I went home to my mom. I'm like, "Mom, can I play football?" She's like, "Sure." I'm like, "Oh, I guess you weren't protecting this son, but okay, fine, whatever." No, and so I played 1 year when I was in high school. As every member of my team could attest to, I was terrible. But I had fun. I got pneumonia like 3/4 of the way through our season and was like totally out of it. But yeah, it was great. I don't have a deep knowledge of football, and in fact, when Father Pete first asked me to be the football chaplain, I said two things. I said, first of all, I'm honored. Thank you for asking. Second, I don't know that much about football, right? And he was great. Immediately he said, "Nate, we don't need you to call plays. We pay a lot of people a lot of money to know everything there is to know about football. We just need you to bring them to Jesus." And I said, "I can try to do that." And I think, in some ways it might even be helpful that I'm not the super fan, like the Notre Dame football super fan, just because, like, I think I'm able to meet the guys where they are. And I think all of us, I see it as my job is to remind them and all of us, right, that they're more than what they can do on Saturday, right? That they, at the end and before and after any college football, any pro football career, anything like that, before and after that, they are a child of God. And to be grounded and centered in that identity, I think, is the most important thing.
You said one of the roles, your job description is to bring them to Jesus. How do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say some pretty tangible ways in which we have mass together, and Coach Freeman has brought that back to game day. Before, when under Coach Kelly, we did it the day before the game. But I've been invited in a number of ways to participate in the fellowship that they do right now. Coach Stuckey actually runs their fellowship and does a Bible study and stuff, and I think they're surrounded by people who are faith-filled and great witnesses to the love of Christ. So it's not just my job, right? Obviously, as the priest, I have a specific role in that, and I think in celebrating the sacraments. But hopefully all of us in all that we do at Notre Dame, it's part of what makes the place so special, is that they care about the spiritual life of players and of all our students and student athletes here at the university. So, I mean, I think part of it is witnessing, part of it is talking about Christ, and, you know, inviting people into the stories of the life of Jesus. And then also just witnessing to joy in my own life, and hopefully preaching in a compelling way.
One thing that I read recently is Marcus Freeman converted to Catholicism, and I was wondering what role did you have in that?
Look, it's been a beautiful process. I would say my role was very small, in the sense that, you know, I you know, give credit obviously where credit is due, the Holy Spirit, first and foremost. But also, I mean, his wife, Joanna, is a faithful Catholic. They're raising their kids Catholic, and she, you know, for the years of their marriage, has been really just having conversations with him, witnessing to him in in her Catholic faith. And it was just this summer that, you know, coach reached out to me and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about this process. Can we talk more about this?" And of course, I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely, we can. This is great." And I think as well, some of the conversations on the team helped as well. I mean, as I walked in this journey with Ron Paulus in the past, Ron, whose wife Sarah is Catholic as well, and I think she had that sort of similar influence on him to say, like, you know, this is a beautiful part of my faith, and I think he came to be aware of that. And I think between him and you know, Hunter Bivin also came into the church. His now wife Megan is Catholic, and I think they're all like this encouragement to have deep conversations about their faith is great. And so my only role was really to do catechesis. We walked through the entirety of the catechism, which is pretty cool, and had great conversations. We were meeting once a week this whole summer about his faith and, you know, faith questions about the Catholic Church. And it was just a great privilege, and was able to confirm him and give his first communion. Pretty cool.
Wow, that's amazing. And one thing that always comes out to me, like I said, when I think about Notre Dame traditions, in addition to Mass on game day, which is just like one of the coolest things ever. I'm so happy it's back. Are the medals, and not everyone knows about the medals. Could you explain the medal tradition and what it means to the team?
Yeah, so every week we give the players a holy medal, and it's not just in football. We do this in a number of the different sports as well. Pete McCormick does this with the basketball players. We've done this before. Stacey Nome does this with fencers sometimes when they get together for some of these things. We give just a small holy medal to the student athletes. It's just a reminder of the saints, and you know, we'll tell a different story about the saint every week. And, you know, I think for me, it's a reminder of the multiple paths of each of our journeys take toward Christ, multiple paths toward salvation and sainthood, to remind people that, look, we're all invited into that same journey toward God and toward heaven of sanctity. And there's so many different pathways to it, so many different life experiences that can draw people to sainthood, that I think those medals are a good reminder of that. And I think it's been a lot of fun to research it and to share it too. Like when I started doing this, I created an Instagram account. Oh my gosh, I'm never on Instagram. And so I'm at Pray Like a Champion today on my Instagram, and I post the Holy Medal every week, a little bit about that saint, and then have one of the players actually hold it. So you have to swipe to see which player is holding the Holy Medal, and they've really liked it. I really liked it. I've learned a lot about Instagram thanks to Pete McCormick and April Garcia, who teach me about, you know, okay, do this and that. Okay, whatever. But it's been a lot of fun to share that, and I think people have felt more connected to that part of Notre Dame.
Who was the saint last week?
Padre Pio, a great modern saint. He was, and it'll be kind of more well known. Shia LaBeouf just did a movie where he played Padre Pio in this, and actually through the movie came to a conversion in his own faith to become Catholic, which is kind of cool. But he was a Capuchin priest in this past century, just an amazing preacher, somebody who was a mystic, And I told the guys on Saturday that he had visions during Mass and sometimes just had these ecstatic moments. And some of his Masses went as long as 4 hours. And I said to the guys, aren't you glad I'm not a saint?
4 hours before the game day. Yeah, I don't know if that would fly.
Not so much.
Before I let you go, Father Nate, I want to ask you about the relationships you have with your players, because you mentioned that your path to priesthood is a vocation, and you knew it when you even came into college. That to me mirrors a lot of the football players, at least that I knew, or that that I meet on the team, who they know from their little kids that they want to go to the NFL, and they orient their lives toward that goal. What relationships stand out to you, or do you have any great stories of a moment that you connected with one of these guys?
Yeah, it's been, I mean, I have so many. I mean, there's just incredible stories of faith. I mean, I can't help but think of, I mean, the faith of somebody like Drew Tranquil, who just it felt like every time he took a breath, he was talking about his faith and inviting people more deeply into it. Dalen Hayes, I mean, a great example of faith. I mean, I think about Tommy Kramer, who is consistently one of the guys who just had amazing questions for me. I mean, he would just be, you can just see him thinking about his faith, and somebody who really took his faith and continues to take his faith seriously. It's really great. I mean, those moments of connection with guys, I think are really fun. And Tommy used to tell me that often the Friday night before a game, guys would have all these conversations about faith, and he would say, like he and Ian Book were talking about their faith and these deep questions, philosophical questions. I'm like, really? That's what you guys were doing the night before a game? And it's just amazing to see how people see different dimensions of our student athletes, as great players or motivated people. But they're also just really intense about their faith life, and really just thoughtful, curious disciples trying to do their best, trying to figure out, how to grow in their faith, whether they're Catholic or not. Just, I think that's part of the Notre Dame experience, right? That I think we really do care deeply about the person that you're becoming, especially in relationship to your friendship with Christ.
Thank you so much, Father Nate, for taking the time to talk with me. It's always a pleasure to see you, and I can't wait to get that next medal. I don't know who it's going to be, but I can't wait to see it. Thank you,
Just
Father
have to wait
Nate.
and see.
Doug, welcome to the podcast. It's time for a game breakdown. Tell me your thoughts, the first high-level thoughts of Notre Dame's win over North Carolina. What stood out?
Wow, North Carolina's defense is bad. I realize that's not the first thought Notre Dame fans want to hear, but that is my first thought, because that defense was bad. Now, you have to take advantage of that. A bad defense doesn't give up 52 points. The offense has to do something. And I say 52, not 45, because Audric Estime was what? A foot away from another touchdown in those closing minutes. And it's not one of those, well, you don't know how the rest of the game would have played. It was the final 3 minutes. Notre Dame would have had 52 points. It's the kind of thing that you didn't expect from this offense. In our talking earlier, I think you called it a science fiction if you had asked a few weeks ago. And that's what a surprise it was. But to some extent, let's not forget, North Carolina's defense is really
bad. I can't help but bring up the total here. Total offense. Let's break it down, shall we? Passing. Notre Dame had 289 yards passing. Rushing, 287 yards rushing. You think about a balanced, I mean, that's like 2 yards off.
And Tori, I actually will argue the flip is the other way. It was 291 yards rushing before they lost 4 yards on kneel downs. Just for precision here, it's still a 2 yard difference, but they really did run the ball for 291 yards.
And it is truly like science fiction, I think, because when you watch Notre Dame earlier in the season, particularly the opener against Ohio State, you saw Marshall, you're thinking, can Notre Dame score? That was kind of at least something to me. Will the offense click? What will it look like? And it seems to find its groove. What do you think is working well for Notre Dame, and especially in that recent showing against North Carolina? Because 45 points, I know you said the defense is bad, but obviously something is going well if you almost put up 600 yards of total offense.
I agree. I mean, a bad defense is going to give up 30, 35 on default. For you to push that toward 50, something was working. I wrote a column for today. We're recording on Tuesday of the idle week, and it's those three running backs and Michael Mayer. If you take their combination of touches, it was more than 70% of Notre Dame's offense. You take their combination of yards, it was more than 70% of Notre Dame's offense. For four players, and essentially two, you can argue three positions, to have that kind of production is a little lopsided. But when you're able to rotate running backs in like that, it works. When you're able to have just this beast of a human being in Michael Mayer, who you could argue it's illegal for him to be on the field with some of these opposing players. It's just not fair. You're able to lean the offense to that lopsided degree, and you need to. I mean, against Marshall, the only things that were working were Mayer and Tyler Buckner's legs. We don't have Tyler Buckner's legs anymore. So now it needs to be Mayer and somebody else's legs. And those three running backs really showed up.
Chris Tyree, Audric Estime, who had 134 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. Chris Tyree had 1 touchdown, and then Logan Diggs. Those are the 3 you're mentioning. And it is interesting because the first Drew Pine, we talked about this. It seemed as though the running game was Tyler Buckner. Either like an option or quarterback design run. He was consistently the leading rusher. And then now you're starting to see these huge games from the running backs. And it almost harkens back, at least in my mind, to like the Kyron Williams days, doesn't it? Where it's just like, it seems like the same kind of idea. 2 backs, do by committee, and you have Michael Mayer. And then you also look at the receiving yards, and it seems you keep seeing Diggs, Tyree, close near the top game after game now.
I'll go back even further, partially to make the Tyler Buckner comparison. What he was doing was Brandon Wimbush-esque. It wasn't just that he had the most rushing yards. He had the most rushing carries against Marshall when he missed the final series and a half. And that was what Wimbush always did. If you go back to that 2017 season, though, when Josh Adams had a 2-week Heisman campaign, 33 trucking, that team had more than just Josh Adams running the ball. Deion McIntosh, Dexter Williams, Tony Jones Jr. all found the end zone on the ground. And that's what this team is starting to look like. Audric might be the lead back. After last week, he certainly should be. But he's got these other pieces that are doing just as much together. And that starts to look like that 2017 offense, the last one that had a certain offensive line coach who's back on the roster now as well.
Yeah, what have you seen from the offensive line from week 1 to now?
It's gotten better. I kind of have rolled my eyes at Marcus Freeman's coach speak of, we forget how young this offensive line is. Yes, the tackles, Joe Alt, Blake Fisher, are both true sophomores. You've got a fifth-year veteran who started for 4 seasons, a senior who started for parts of 3 seasons, and a 6th-year veteran at right guard in Josh Lugg who started for parts of 4 seasons. Don't go telling me it's a young offensive line. Tell me it's an offensive line that hadn't played together. Tell me it's an offensive line that needed to work on communicating from one tackle spot to the other, because no matter how veteran the offensive line is, it's only as good as that communication from one bookend to the other. And that takes a little bit of time. This is the 3rd year in a row we've had this conversation in September of how bad Notre Dame's offensive line is. And it's the 3rd year in a row. By early October, it showed, it just needed a few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like, I always think about offensive line as, first of all, they do everything together. They move in just herds. And, it takes time. That's one thing you always see after practice. Who are the last ones to leave practice? It's the offensive line. They're doing drills, for like an hour after practice. Everyone else is on inside, ready showered, eating training table, which is dinner. And you'll look out, and then the offensive line will just then be coming in. It's all about reps and all about time together. And we're starting.
And last year, they took it a step further with the advent of name, image, likeness rights. The offensive line only did deals as a unit. So they got an underwear deal, they got pizza, they got barbecue. They would only do them all together, which is great and also kind of absurd.
It's funny, though, when you look at this North Carolina defense, you mentioned them being bad. I think as far as like what does that actually translate to, I just look at the box scores and like break down by quarter for North Carolina, and they give up. There's always one quarter where they just give up a massive amount of points.
Are you referring to Appalachian State scoring 40 points in the 4th quarter alone? And I think you and I were together at Ohio State as that's happening, and we're just like, how is this still going on?
Yeah, and every single game they gave up 25 against Georgia State, I think, and then then you have a 24-point second quarter by Notre Dame. So it seems as though there was always that opportunity for one big quarter, and Notre Dame took full advantage of that in the second quarter. It seems as though.
It is that, but I will give Notre Dame credit. It was more than just that second quarter. First drive of the third quarter, they immediately struck. It was one thing I'm really enjoying this season that maybe I just didn't notice in years past. Combination of Tommy Rees being available during the week, which is new, and Drew Pine and how he talks about the game. Drew Pine explains, "Oh, that touchdown to Logan Diggs, that was because I threw a ball away in the second quarter, and Tommy saw they didn't cover the running back in the flat." Which is just the kind of thing that now you get to go look at and understand the game so much better. But that's how Notre Dame scored right away in the third quarter on the first drive. And in the first quarter, Notre Dame missed a field goal. Let's say that drive converts. I mean, it's Notre Dame scored on 6 consecutive drives, could have been 7. And it wasn't just that second quarter in that respect. They really did push into the third quarter, and the first quarter was gaining momentum.
Let's talk about the defense now, because North Carolina had 2 of their stars back. First and foremost, Josh Downs, 1,000-yard receiver. He's back and healthy. He played. And Antoine Green. How did Notre Dame limit them? Because you look at Josh Downs, 5 receptions, 32 yards.
Okay, Notre Dame limited Josh Downs. Notre Dame didn't so much limit Antoine Green.
Antoine Green had 3, for those who don't know the stat, 3 receptions, 150 yards, 2 touchdowns. But still, it was not enough. What do you think the defense did well covering those?
It was very impressive that after North Carolina goes down the field, scores easily on its first drive, Notre Dame forces a 3-and-out on North Carolina's second drive. The third drive, there was a play that really stood out to me. Drake May, sophomore quarterback, he's a lot of fun to watch. He can do it all. He is a complete package. He's going to be a lot of fun, at least for 2 seasons, to enjoy as a college football fan. He knows how to run. He picks his moments. North Carolina had a 3rd and 12, and they designed a quarterback draw. Notre Dame sent 3, and Maris Leofau started to be a 4th and then pulled up because he saw the quarterback draw. He beat 2 blocks, running back and the left guard, to get to May for a 2-yard gain on a 3rd and 12. It was that kind of discipline that we don't always see early in the season. Maris Leofau is an aggressive player. He wants to just make the big play. And if he wasn't disciplined in that moment, you would expect him to just shoot his lane and over-pursue Drake May on the quarterback draw. But instead, he held his ground, worked through those 2 blocks, and it was that kind of assignment sound play that hemmed in Drake May. He ended up with 56 rushing yards on 10 carries, which is pretty good for a quarterback, but he'd been averaging north of 8 yards per carry. So Notre Dame, removing that option for North Carolina, started to hold that whole offense in. Josh Downs, he'll have his games. Antoine Green beat Notre Dame deep late. What are you going to do? He's going to get his. He's really fast. He's got good hands.
You look at that stat line, historically, I mean, this season's small sample size, 4 games, but you look at Drake May's efficiency, it's incredible. And against Notre Dame, it's not so incredible. Once again, 5 touchdowns, 300 yards. Wow. But 17 for 32, that's uncharacteristic of Drake May. And it is interesting how they were able to put some pressure on him and get him out of his game, out of his element. When you look forward here, moving forward to BYU, because that's what we're looking at on the horizon, where's your confidence level with the defense? How do you feel?
BYU is going to sound a lot like North Carolina in that it's been playing without its 2 best receivers. Gunnar Romney suffered a kidney laceration the first week of preseason practices. To my understanding, team doctors were like, we have no idea when you can return. He is on the verge. He might play this week. And then their other receiver, whose last name, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce it. He goes by Puka as his first name. People just call him Puka. He's coming back from a twisted ankle. Those 2 will open up BYU's offense in a way we haven't seen yet. And that's an offense that already prefers to play Notre Dame's game. North Carolina is not a team known for its offensive and defensive lines. BYU is. That's going to be a really interesting matchup because it's Notre Dame's strength is BYU's strength. It's led by a dynamic quarterback with these receivers returning, but its strength is its offensive and defensive lines.
And offensively, what do you think? Where's your confidence level with Notre Dame's offense?
I think Notre Dame knows it needs to lean on those 3 backs and Michael Mayer. And if you do that, if you just go all in on that, I think it's a reasonably high floor. It's not some outstanding offense, but it's 28 points a week, which up until this past week, we hadn't seen. And if you can get 28 points a week, you're going to win a lot of football games. And that's just the floor that I'm setting there. I think that offense, that relatively conservative, it's the second or third slowest offense in the country right now on time between snaps. But if you lean into that, those are your strengths. And you don't have a whole lot of them, but lean into the ones you have.
And finally, before I let you go, Doug, let's talk recruiting. What updates do you have for us? I mean, you look at these recruiting classes Notre Dame's been able to, put together. Impressive. Give me updates.
I don't have any exact names that I'm going to drop on you, partially because I like to let 16, 17, and 18-year-olds take their time in making these huge life decisions. You were in those shoes once. It's not fun to have a reporter banging down your door to get a scoop. But I will say what Marcus Freeman was always known for was talent procurement. These recruiting classes. Notre Dame, according to Rivals, is the third class in the class of 2023 right now. And even if that falls to number 4 or 5 because other teams add a few players late, like that's the kind of talent influx we weren't seeing. There's a reason Notre Dame is such a conservative offense right now. It's because it has no receivers in the junior and senior classes. That's not an exaggeration. There is no receiver on this roster that is a junior or a senior. It's because there were just these recruiting lapses, and there are none of those in the coming classes. The class of 2023 has 3 4-star receivers who are going to come in and I don't know, maybe they don't play right away. We've all seen how that can take time, but they're going to play. They're going to get to that point, and that's the kind of thing that can change a program. You add in that kind of perimeter talent, because we all know Marcus Freeman keeps saying Notre Dame is an offensive and defensive line driven program. That's great, but at some point that car has got to go faster.
Yes, we've seen the DNA of this team looks like the 2-backs, the 3-back committee, and Michael Mayer and the offensive defensive lines, like you said. It would be nice to see some elite level receivers like we saw, a couple of years ago. It'd be very nice. Doug,
It would be a change.
Thank you very much for your time, Doug. It's always a pleasure to hear you break down the team's performance. And I'm very excited for next week BYU to see if all these things play out.
I look forward to it. I look forward to staying out of trouble in Las Vegas, and I look forward to talking to you soon.
Make NBC Sports Predictor a pregame ritual every week. Play Irish Pick'em for free and have a chance to win $10,000 each week. Rush the end zone and download NBC Sports Predictor app today on the App Store and Google Play Store. So that's it for this bye-week episode. Many thanks to Father Nate and Doug. Like I mentioned, bye-week, what does this mean for you and I? It means we get a chance to watch other games, maybe sleep, rest emotionally. That's what the team is doing. So we should do the same. We should take a page from their notes. And the thing to note here is that when we get back into action and we have more Notre Dame football on Saturday, it's going to be a big game, BYU at Allegiant Stadium for the Shamrock Series. The Shamrock Series is kind of like bowl season before bowl season. It's a marquee event. You get new uniforms. It's just a whole situation. It's a whole scenario. So it's fun for us as fans. It's fun for them as players. And this is a chance for Notre Dame to go into the positive here, into the black, go 3-2 potentially. And it could mark what very well might be a turnaround for this team. We don't know. We will see. But first and foremost, get some rest. Take care of yourself. Please. We'll see you next week. Go Irish.